So what's that? I'm with you, baby. Today I'm gonna show you a recipe for jerk beef and vegetable soup. Stay tuned. Cook! All right, so I have some beef neck bones. You know, for this recipe, I usually use oxtails, but if you haven't seen the price of them oxtails for them little bitty packets lately, you know, you'll be tripping to buy them little things. So I went with a cheaper cut of meat. I got some beef neck bones, and this is what we're gonna use for this soup. So first I'm gonna put it in a freezer bag, and then I'm gonna pour my jerk marinade into that bag and get it nice mixed in, and we're gonna put it in the fridge for about 2 hours, a couple of hours, you know, maybe 3, you know, and after that, you know, we're gonna get it cracking. So this is the marinade that I use. You know, I got the mild. You guys can get the spicy if you want, but I'm making this for my family, you know, and I have a little one at home, so it can't be too spicy because he won't eat it. So I got the mild, and what I did is I poured about 3/4 of the bottle into the bag. I wanted to save a little more for later, but I poured some in the bag. I got it well mixed in together. And then, like I said, we're gonna put it in the refrigerator for a couple hours. So I squeezed as much air out of the bag as possible. You know, I wanted the air tight while it's marinating in the refrigerator. Okay, so once those 2 to 3 hours were up, you know, I let the neck bones get at room temperature. I went ahead and added some grapeseed oil to the pot. You can use olive oil, you can use vegetable oil, you can use whatever you like to use. But I let the neck bones get at room temperature, and then I went ahead and I started the cooking process. And we're just gonna keep them moving so they don't stick to the bottom of the pot. And I chopped up 3 cloves of garlic and added that to the pot. Now, while that's cooking, we're gonna go ahead and chop up our vegetables. I have a couple shallots, a green bell pepper, and 2 stalks of celery. Okay, so now we're gonna add water to the pot. They've been cooking for a little minute now. The cooking process has started, and we're just gonna add enough water to kind of cover the neck bones. And we're gonna put the top on it, and we're gonna cook it at a medium-low heat for about 1.5 hours till they're nice and tender. But in the meanwhile, we're gonna prepare the rest of our ingredients. I have a half a head of cabbage left over from a previous meal. I'm gonna use half of that. I have 2 corn on the cobs. I'm gonna cut those into smaller pieces. And I have 2 russet potatoes. I'm gonna chop those into smaller cubes. Now the neck bones are nice and tender. What we're gonna do is we're gonna remove it from the pot. I'm gonna put it into this bowl here. And we're gonna let it cool off, because what we're gonna do is we're gonna remove the meat from the bone. And once we're done removing all the meat, what we're gonna be left with is the base of our soup. You know, the jerk seasoning, the beef flavoring, the juices that were released from the beef cooking. And you know, like I said, that's gonna be the base of this soup. Now we're gonna add 32 ounces of vegetable stock. I'm using unsalted vegetable stock because I like to salt my food myself. Now I'm gonna add 8 cups of water. Now keep in mind, I'm making this for my family. You don't have to make this much soup, but if you're gonna make less, you're gonna add less water. You're gonna also have to add less ingredients, just to kind of keep the ratio right, you know, of vegetables to liquid. Now we're gonna add our shallots, bell pepper, and celery. And at this point, we're gonna add some seasoning. I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of dried thyme, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, and also 1 teaspoon of allspice. Now, I'm not gonna add any salt at this point. I want those seasonings and herbs and spices to kind of blend in with the soup. Then I'm gonna taste it, and then I'm gonna, assess how much salt I need. So while that's getting back up to temperature, I went ahead and separated the meat from the bone. Now that we've brought this back up to a boil, we're gonna add our potatoes, we're gonna add our corn, and we're also gonna add the meat back to the pot. Now, I went ahead and tasted it at this time. So I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of salt. I know it looked like a lot, but you gotta trust me. It's a lot going into this pot. All the vegetables, the corn, the potatoes, the peas, the cabbage, the unsalted vegetable stock, the water. It might look like a lot of salt, but 2 tablespoons is not salty at all. Trust me. And remember, earlier I said I was gonna save some of the jerk seasoning for later. At this point, this is where you would add the jerk seasoning, if you wanted more. But I felt like I didn't need it. So we're gonna put the top back on it, let it come back up to temperature, let it come to a boil. Then we're gonna add our frozen peas. I use 1 16-ounce bag of frozen peas. So I tasted it again, and it needed a little more salt. So I added a 1/2 tablespoon of salt this time. And this time it was just right. Now at this point, the soup was almost done. I put the top back on it. I let it roll for a little bit longer, until the potatoes were nice and tender. And once they were tender, I went ahead and added the cabbage. I chopped up the cabbage into smaller pieces so you won't have big chunks of cabbage, in your soup. So once I added the cabbage, I got that stirred in. I went ahead and chopped up some fresh parsley, some green onions, and I also added that to the pot. Then I put the top back on it until the cabbage got nice and tender. Now it's all done. You can see this is a nice, hearty vegetable soup. It has the jerk beef neck bones in it with the jerk flavoring, full of vegetables. You know, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you're thinking. It's time to taste this. And y'all ignore my half-naked baby in the background. Every time I'm in the kitchen, he in the kitchen, eating up all the food. But for real though, this was wonderful. This was very good. But thanks for sticking around. I see y'all next time.